You are not what you feel, unless you've already been possessed. Carl Jung never used the word empath as we know it today, but he foresaw them, and he warned us, because while modern culture romanticizes empaths as angelic, heart-centered healers, Jung saw something far more dangerous. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And for the empath, that fate is often to suffer for ghosts they don't even know they're carrying. Empaths don't just feel too much, they merge, and in that merging, they disappear. They lose their identity, their will, their body. They absorb the traumas, shadows, and unprocessed emotional residue of everyone around them. But here's the truth you've never been told. What you call empathy may actually be unconscious possession. And Carl Jung knew this, long before the term energy vampire ever hit Instagram. Empaths are not born from sunshine and peace. They are often forged in chaos. Many grew up in homes where emotions were volatile, unpredictable, or outright dangerous. Environments where anger was explosive, affection conditional, or silence weaponized. So they adapted, not consciously but biologically and psychologically. They learned to read micro-expressions before a voice was raised. They felt the emotional charge of a room the moment they stepped inside. They became experts at attuning to the needs, moods, and shadows of others, not because they were gifted, but because they were unsafe. This is not a flaw. It's brilliance born of necessity. It's the psyche doing what it must to protect the vulnerable inner self. Carl Jung called these patterns complexes, deeply rooted emotional imprints stored in the unconscious, often created by early trauma or overwhelming experiences. These complexes act like internal software running without awareness, influencing how we see, feel, and react to the world. A complex is like a partial personality. It can think, feel, and act on its own. Carl Jung. The empath, then, is often a person possessed by the survival-based complex of emotional hypervigilance. Their nervous system doesn't relax because it has been trained to scan for danger, even if that danger wears a smile. They are not just emotional. They are trauma-calibrated instruments vibrating with other people's chaos, often unable to hear their own music beneath the noise. And here lies the danger. They are drawn into the pain of others because their own pain is unresolved. They confuse resonance with responsibility, and in that confusion they begin to drown. But let's go deeper. Modern neuroscience now proves what Jung intuited from symbols and dreams. Empaths' brains work differently. 1. Mirror neurons, the root of empathic absorption. Mirror neurons are special cells in your brain that activate both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing it. You see someone cry, your brain partially fires as if you are crying. You hear someone sigh in despair, your nervous system mimics it subtly. You witness someone rage, your body reacts with anxiety, even if it wasn't directed at you. This is the neurobiological foundation of empathy, the ability to feel with another. But in empaths, these mirror neurons are overactive. A 2020 study from the University of Virginia showed that high empathy individuals exhibit stronger somatic responses, bodily stress, heart rate spikes, cortisol, when witnessing emotional suffering, especially if they were raised in emotionally volatile environments. This means the empath is not just imagining your pain, they're physically registering it in their body. But here's the trap. They often don't realize it's not theirs. 2. The default mode network, losing your center. Your default mode network, DMN, is the part of your brain responsible for self-referencing. It's what helps you distinguish between you and not you, between my feelings and your feelings. In empaths and trauma survivors, fMRI studies show that the DMN is often disrupted. It fails to draw clear boundaries between emotional inputs. So when a friend unloads their suffering or a partner is silently brooding, the empath's brain automatically downloads it as part of their own identity. They feel sick, low, anxious, or heavy, without knowing why, because their brain literally can't tell where they end and the other begins. Empaths are often praised for being so understanding. The friend everyone cries to, the partner who always listens, the healer who holds space for everyone. And that recognition can feel good, needed, holy, important. But let me say this clearly. Feeling deeply is not a superpower unless you have learned to protect your core. Empathy without inner structure becomes emotional codependence disguised as virtue. And this is not your fault. It's what happens when your survival system never got updated. When you became so skilled at carrying the emotional weight of others that you never learned how to set it down. Jung taught that awareness is the first transformation. Here's how to start reclaiming yourself. 1. Build the muscle of differentiation. Ask yourself in moments of heaviness, is this mine or someone else's? Did I feel this way before I entered this space? What changed in my body when I spoke to that person? This begins to train your default mode network to rebuild boundaries. Even just naming the feeling as external creates a psychological break from fusion. 2. Somatic discharge. Return to your body. Your body is not just a container, it's a compass. If you feel overwhelmed after a conversation, do something physical. Shake your limbs, stomp your feet, breathe deeply into your belly, visualize releasing the energy out. Not in this, signals to your nervous system. This is not mine. I do not have to hold it. 3. Create a daily emotional inventory. Take 5 minutes at night and write, what did I feel today that was clearly mine? What emotions surprised me or didn't feel like me? Who did I speak to before those shifts? This will begin to map the patterns of energetic influence in your life. Over time, it becomes easy to spot who drains you and who supports your center. 4. Name your inner complex. Jung believed that naming your wound dethrones it, so name the complex that shaped you. Was it the pleaser, who had to make everyone happy to avoid abandonment? The healer, who learned love meant rescuing? The invisible child who became useful to feel seen? Give it a name, write its story, and then begin to speak to it, with compassion but without obedience. 5. Reclaim your inner sovereignty. Remember, you are not responsible for fixing the world. You are responsible for not losing yourself in the process of loving it. And that means feeling without fusing, witnessing without absorbing, loving without losing. This is not detachment. This is the deepest form of integrity. Most people think trauma is the deepest wound. But Jung warned us, there is something older, deeper, and more dangerous: archetypal possession. When we are unconscious of ourselves, we don't just act from wounds, we are taken over by ancient psychic patterns. These aren't metaphors, they are primordial forces that live in every human being. Timeless, nameless patterns like the savior, the martyr, the victim, the wounded healer, the abandoned child, the devouring mother, the dark father, the seducer, the exile, and the mirror. Each of these archetypes carries massive psychic energy, and if you are not aware of them, they live through you. You become a character in a myth you didn't write, and for the empath who was taught never to say no, this danger is everywhere. Because the empath, bless their tenderness, is open. Their psychic walls are thin, their unconsciousness is porous. They confuse compassion with fusion and presence with self-erasure. Jung's formula: openness without boundaries, = archetypal takeover. A narcissist enters, the empath becomes the healer, trying to fix what was never theirs to fix. A manipulator enters, the empath becomes the sacrificer, silently giving their body, time, and energy while calling it love. A trauma-drenched soul enters, the empath becomes the graveyard, absorbing grief that isn't theirs, thinking if they carry it, the other will be saved. But here's Jung's warning: people don't have ideas, ideas have people, and archetypes, far older than ideas, will devour a personality that isn't anchored in its true self. The real example: the therapist who disappeared. I once worked with a woman, we'll call her Maria. She was the model of a good therapist. Attentive, soft-spoken, available at any hour. Clients adored her. Her inbox overflowed with thanks. But Maria was empty. She couldn't sleep. Her body ached. She cried in private and didn't know why. Her marriage was falling apart. Her husband said he no longer recognized her. She felt like a shell of a person. And yet, she refused to take time off. Why? Because without being needed, Maria didn't know who she was. She had been possessed, not by demons, but by the wounded healer archetype. What Jung associated with Chiron, the mythical figure who could heal others, but never himself. She had fused so completely with her client's pain that she lost access to her own. In session after session, she held space for others to cry, but she had never once allowed herself to feel her own rage, sorrow, or shame. In her dreams, she stood in foggy fields holding crying infants, dozens of them, none of them hers. She said, "They're all so small, they need me. If I drop even one, something terrible will happen." That was the archetype speaking, not Maria. Her soul was drowning beneath a persona of goodness. The truth: she was never helping, she was hiding. It took almost a year of deep Jungian work for her to begin separating herself from her roles. Only then did her real feelings emerge. Her rage at having always been the caretaker, her guilt for wanting space, her grief for never being chosen unless she was useful, her unmet desire to be held, not just hold. And in that realization, something shattered. She had never really helped anyone, not in the deepest sense. She had fused with them to avoid confronting her own aloneness. That's the real danger Jung points to. When you're possessed by an archetype, even your goodness becomes a defense. You serve not out of love, but out of fear. You care for others so you don't have to feel your own emptiness. You save them, because saving yourself feels impossible. If you recognize this in yourself, whether you're a helper, therapist, coach, parent, friend, there is no shame, only a fork in the road. Here's how to begin reclaiming yourself. 1. Name the archetype that's possessing you. Is it the savior, the mother, the wounded healer, the martyr, the mirror? Write a letter to it. Speak with it in a journal. Ask, what do you want from me? When did you first appear? What are you trying to protect me from? This dialogue with the unconscious is the beginning of individuation. Jung's path to selfhood. 2. Reclaim your right to exist without being useful. Maria's healing didn't begin when she saw fewer clients. It began the day she sat on the floor and screamed, "I don't want to be needed. I want to be loved." And for many empaths, this is the hidden truth. You've been trained to earn affection through emotional labor. But real love doesn't need to be earned, only received. 3. Build a life where you are not a role. The more your identity is fused with being there for others, the more susceptible you are to possession. What happens if you take a weekend alone, you don't answer the late-night call, you disappoint someone? That fear you feel, that's the archetype screaming. Let it scream, then breathe, and discover you're still here. Archetypes are ancient, but you are eternal. You are not here to be someone else's savior. You are here to become someone whole. When the empath becomes conscious, they stop acting out inherited myths. They become the author of a new story, not one written in sacrifice, but in sovereignty. And in that story, you don't disappear to help others. You appear, fully, alive, unpossessed, and finally, free. Most people believe empaths are fragile, too soft, too emotional. But Jung would laugh at this. Where there is light, there is shadow. The real truth? Empaths are powerful, but unconsciously so, and unconscious power is dangerous. Because when the empath hasn't done their shadow work, their empathy becomes a weapon wrapped in silk. It looks like love, but it's control. It sounds like compassion, but it's performance. It feels like help, but it's hunger in disguise. Shadow empathy sounds like this. If I feel what you feel, I'll fix you. Control. If I absorb your pain, you'll love me. Transaction. If I suffer with you, I matter. Identity. You're not holding space. You're negotiating for worth, with your body as the currency. This is what Jung meant when he said, the unconscious is not just evil by nature, it is also the source of the highest good. Not only dark but also light, not only bestial, semi-human and demonic, but superhuman, spiritual and, in the classical sense of the word, divine. But here's the danger. If you only identify with the light of your empathy, you remain blind to its dark undercurrent. And that undercurrent is manipulation. Silent, holy-looking, well-intended, but still a form of control. So what do? Jung never said, close your heart. He said, become conscious. Individuate. Stop letting the unconscious pull the strings. Individuation means becoming a whole human, not just the kind one, not just the healer, not just the feeler. And for the empath, that begins with taking your power back from the shadow of kindness. Here's how. 1. Learn discernment. Is this mine? Before you drown in another person's sorrow, ask, did I feel this way 10 minutes ago? Is this coming from me or is this echo? Awareness is power. Name what's not yours and give it back. 2. Set energetic boundaries. Not walls, but filters. A wall says, nothing gets in. A filter says, only what aligns may stay. Boundaries aren't a rejection of others. They are a protection of your center, the sacred place where your self lives. 3. Name the wound that feeds your empathy with compassion, not condemnation. Let's be clear. Helping others doesn't always come from a shadow. It often comes from pain, the quiet ache of knowing what it's like to feel alone, unworthy, forgotten. You help because you know what it means to be unseen, because you never want anyone else to feel what you felt. Because sometimes helping someone else is the only way you know how to hold on to hope. That's not manipulation, that's survival. But here's the key. Even if your empathy comes from goodness, it still needs consciousness. Or it can quietly become self-erasure. Ask yourself with gentleness, what do I hope to feel when I help? Do I feel safe when I'm needed? Do I fear being unimportant without being useful? Is it easier to hold someone else's pain than to face my own emptiness? These are not accusations. They are invitations. Your empathy may have started as a survival strategy, but now you have the power to make it a choice, not a compulsion. 4. Face the part of you that uses empathy to avoid yourself, without shame. This part is tender because we are not here to shame your care. We're here to protect your heart from becoming a hiding place. Sometimes we help others because we genuinely want to. Other times, we rush to hold their pain because we're scared of the silence that would follow if we stopped fixing, listening, or giving. And in that silence, we'd have to face our own unmet grief, our own emotional hunger, our own forgotten needs. That's not wrong, that's human. But Jung reminds us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So ask, with love, not blame, when was the last time I let myself be helped? Do I use other people's stories to avoid sitting with my own? Do I disappear into their pain so I don't have to speak mine aloud? This is not spiritual bypassing in the judgmental sense. It's emotional exhaustion wearing a mask of kindness. And you deserve rest. You deserve healing too. Helping others is beautiful, when it flows from a place of wholeness, not hunger. Empathy is sacred, when it's rooted in clarity, not codependency. You don't need to stop being kind. You just need to stop disappearing inside your kindness. You deserve to be seen, even when you're not saving anyone. Let's stop that. The unconscious empath is a sponge. The conscious empath becomes a vessel. What's the difference? A sponge absorbs. It gets soaked, it rots. A vessel contains. It channels, it transforms, but it remains intact. You are not here to be a psychic dumping ground. You are here to be a mirror of presence, not a mirror of pain. When you walk into a room, don't scan for brokenness. Scan for your own alignment. Don't match the sadness. Become the stillness. Don't be their mirror. Be their anchor, the reminder that not everything has to fall apart. When the world screams for you to carry its wounds, don't carry yourself. Because here's the paradox. When you hold yourself with strength, clarity, and integrity, you teach others how to do the same. You don't save them by bleeding for them. You save them by refusing to disappear in their storm. Empathy without boundaries is not love. It's dissolution. It's what happens when a soul was never taught the word no. You think your gift is to feel everything, but that's not the gift. The gift is to feel deeply, without losing yourself. You will not save the world by feeling for it. You will save it by knowing who you are inside it. And when you do, your empathy becomes alchemy. You won't just feel, you'll transform. You won't just reflect pain, you'll transmute it. You won't just carry others. You'll become so grounded, they remember how to stand. And that is the awakened empath, the one who loves with a spine, feels with discernment, and serves without vanishing. You are not here to be a sponge. You are here to become a living vessel of soul. Now, return to yourself. That's where the real healing begins.